Welcome back to the L-Cube Tube. In this segment I want to go through how we help organisations with complex web communications. And typically this means moving away from static websites which are information bearing but not interactive over to one of the benefits of internet usage, which is taking advantage of that interactivity that it provides. This segment I have a model that we can walk through, and this model is a 5-step model. It starts out by understanding the audiences and the website objectives, and I'm actually going to show you a live example of where we've used this kind of approach, and I'll show you the end results of that, as well as walk through the process and show you some of the individual instances where the approach applies and where we can see the outcomes and results. This site that we've built is called the Saltland Genie, and to give you some background on this, as you may know, around Australia the saltland is causing a whole lot of issues in farms, generally connected with weather conditions and some overcropping, but basically saltland causes an issue because it renders the land unusable, and it needs to be resolved in some way. So obviously this site, you can see, is all about how you solve the issues of saltland. The organisation that did all the research, and there's a lot of man hours and person hours of research that have gone into this, came with literally a large manual of information about saltland and the solutions that are available for resolving saltland. And we need to take that and make it into something more accessible, more live, more interesting, more usable, and this is the end result of that project. So back to the diagram. So the process involves understanding the audiences. In the case of the Saltland Genie website, we're obviously talking to a rural audience, usually farmers and some consultants that are working with farmers, and they want to be resolving the issue of saltland on farms. We also need to understand the overall objectives of the site, so I won't go into too much detail of the actual objectives, but suffice to say we were looking at how we help farmers and consultants educate themselves and mitigate the problems of saltland. The second step in our process is understanding the messages, processes and uses for the information. So as I said, we were given a large volume of information about saltland and how it affected farmers in Australia, but also how it could be resolved using various solutions. And in fact there are 12 different ways that you might try and treat saltland. We need to understand the processes, so in this case the majority of the processes were around how you make a selection of the method that you're going to use to tackle your saltland. So there are 12 solutions, and how do you deal with them? How do you select which method is appropriate for you? And that might be based on costs, it might be based on timelines, it might be based on the type of land, it might be based on rainfall. And the uses of that information, again, pretty clear in this case. We needed to educate people and give them tools so that they could go away and resolve their issues with saltland. So in step 3, we're looking to conceptualize and categorize. So as you've seen from the Saltland Genie, there's an overarching concept, which is one of the genie that brings results and obviously gives you advice on what to do. And you can see other sub-concepts that fit under the umbrella. So here we've got the Saltland University. So we dreamt up the idea, we conceptualized the idea that there would be a university where you could find out information about saltland, so that's just giving them background information. And again, using these metaphors just makes the information that much more digestible. You can explore particular solutions, or again, to make the information accessible and live, you can also go through to maps and have a look at the maps. In the rural communities, you can probably imagine a lot of the information, a lot of farmers are interested in information that is specific to their area, and areas obviously differ widely around Australia. So in this case we're using Google Maps to provide that kind of facility. So if the overarching theme is the Saltland Genie, and we've got things like the university here as some of the sort of sub-concepts that help us communicate better, and also the maps. We can also have a look at Genie's advice, and this is one of the sort of the prime interactive areas of this particular website. So I'm just going to flick back over to the slides and show you those again. So in step 3 we're conceptualizing and categorizing, we're building these bite-sized chunks of things like interactivity that can help communicate and help people learn through processes that are interactive online. So in this case we've got, as you can see here, an interactive process where people can answer simple questions. And this, of course, looks simple and intuitive to use, hopefully, but in actual fact is based on a series of choices, selection, questions, statistics that we programmed to this system. And as you can see here, I've now got a range of solutions that are offered to me. In fact, my particular combination of input doesn't lead to any particularly good outputs. You can see the reds, some green results here, so we're using basically another metaphor, the metaphor of traffic lights. So orange just means it's possible, green means it's probably quite a good outcome for us, and red just means it sort of takes us out of that particular solution space. So looking at this particular configuration of questions that I've answered, I can see that I've only got a couple of solutions that are actually available to me here, some of them in grayed out. And again, this is a thorough process of understanding the steps that people need to go through to select a particular solution in this case. And if I activate those and I press compare, I then get taken through to further information about that particular example. So let's just flip back over to the slide set again. So in this case you can see that we've just talked about how we form information architectures by looking at some of the conceptual areas, things like universities and then the classical sense building information architectures by topic and that sort of thing. But also how we plan major interactive areas. So you saw there how we actually built an internal calculator that allowed people to step through a process rather than having to read all the information. And then again, that makes the whole system much more accessible to users. And the final step in the initial part of this sort of website process is the website building process, is actually testing and modifying the concepts. So we need to do that on a number of levels. First of all, we need to test each particular unit, and a unit in a site might be that flash chunk that I just showed you that did the interaction and the process of selection. That needs to be tested in the overall context of the system itself. So do people, when they go to the Saltland Genie website, do they accept and understand the concept of the Genie and asking the Genie questions? Do they understand the concept of a university and how that might fit into the overarching theme? And in this case, do they understand how this then fits in and then be able to use it intuitively? So we system test the whole concept. And then obviously we user test that as well. So we need to be asking people for feedback directly about how they feel about this system, whether it's worked for them or not, if they got lost. And obviously you can sit people down in a formal way to do that in front of machines. In the case of that particular project, we had user groups that gave us feedback on how it worked for them, and got some very interesting feedback. So to wrap up then, when planning a complex website where you need to be getting across more than sort of brochureware level information, you might want to use this 5-step process. Understand the audiences and the website objectives, have a good context for the whole project. Understand the messages, the processes and the uses of the information, remembering that your audiences might use information in different ways and they might try and find information in different ways on the website. Conceptualize and categorize, so concepts like that we've seen there in terms of the Genie and the university, and then looking at the bite-sized chunks that really are going to form the backbone of the messages and the processes that you're going to get across. So again, we looked at the analysis engine there, the selection engine for finding a solution. Beyond that, then we can look at the information architecture, the actual structure, the page structure of the website, and then planning of the individual interactive areas, and obviously executing of those. And following that, we need to user test, system test, and unit test, not necessarily in that order. So I hope this has been a helpful walkthrough of the process, one of the processes that we use. If you'd like to find any more information about us, please get in touch via lcubed.com.au, where you can find contact us pages and all the information you might need. Thanks again for listening in.